When last season ended, we produced a Flops 11, creating a team of players who didn't match expectations and severely underwhelmed. Well, almost 12 months on, let's look at exactly how these players have reacted and how they've done this season. In goal was Joe Hart. The former England number 1 had an awful season on loan at West Ham, and last summer finally ended his Pep Guardiola nightmare, getting a permanent move away from Man City to Burnley. Sadly, it hasn't worked out for him at Turf Moor either. Signed amidst an injury crisis, Hart started the season as Burnley's number 1, but it quickly became apparent that another change in scenery just wasn't going to help. Once Tom Heaton returned from injury, he reclaimed the number 1 jersey, and Burnley have been a lot more solid ever since. Never mind Joe. In defence was Victor Lindelof. We had a 3-4-3 formation in honour of Antonio Conte, and our first centre-back was Victor Lindelof, who hadn't enjoyed a stellar debut year at Manchester United after his €35 million move from Benfica. The Swede never really settled, but has looked a lot more composed this season, even if yet again it hasn't been a vintage year for the Red Devils. Lindelof would be nowhere near a Flops 11 this season, and has actually been one of Manchester United's better players. Next up was Michael Keane. Keane was another defender who really suffered after a big money move. Everton, in an attempt to bridge the gap between themselves and the top 6, spent big 2 summers ago, and Michael Keane would arrive for £25 million from Burnley. But his first season of Goodison Park was a shambles. Fortunately for Keane though, things have looked a lot better under Marco Silva, and Keane is no longer branded a flop by the blue half of Merseyside and has actually got himself back in the England squad. Our third centre-back was Kevin Wimmer. In 2017, Stoke paid £18 million to sign Kevin Wimmer from Tottenham. However, after one season, he'd been relegated with the Potters and banished to the reserves for being a fatty. The Austrian is still technically a Stoke player, but it's been a while since we've seen him don the red and white stripes. While Stoke struggle in the Championship, Wimmer is out on loan in Germany, joining Hanover last season with a view to a permanent deal. However, they're staring relegation in the face, while Wimmer hasn't played enough games to earn a permanent move, so he'll be back at Stoke this summer. Right wing back was Hector Bellerin. Arsenal's number 2 hasn't really had much of a chance to bounce back this season, having picked up a serious knee injury at the end of January that has ruled him out ever since. The Spaniard had started well under Unai Emery and will be hoping to get back in the starting 11 next season when he returns to fitness. Centre midfielder was Bakayoko. The French midfielder had been a key player for Monaco, so it looked like Chelsea had pulled off a real coup when he headed to Stamford Bridge for £40 million. However, it was a disaster in London, with his worst performance probably coming away to Watford where he was sent off. In the summer he moved to AC Milan on loan, and after a ropey start, Bakayoko has shown signs of improvement, with a permanent move to the San Siro likely to happen. He did get himself in trouble though recently, using Lazio's Francesco Kirby shirt as a trophy after Milan beat Lazio, with Kirby claiming before the game that the Rome side were better than the two. Bakayoko was alongside Gregor Krychowiak. Arriving on loan from PSG, Krychowiak was a marquee rival for West Brom and looked like a player who would add real class to an industrious Tony Pulis side. However, that's not how things went down. The Polish midfielder was a shadow of his former Sevilla self, struggling to adapt to Premier League life under multiple managers before West Brom were eventually relegated. He returned to PSG in the summer, where he was loaned out once again to Lokomotiv Moscow. Things are going much better in Russia, with Lokomotiv second in the league, and Krychowiak was recently named the Team of the Week. Left wing back was Danny Rose. In the season prior, Danny Rose seemed to be demoted to backup by Maurizio Pochettino, but that's changed this season. Rose had a couple of decent cameos at the World Cup, and this season at Spurs he's taken back the top spot over Ben Davies in what has been an interesting season for Spurs that could amazingly end with them winning the Champions League. Stranger things have happened. But at least Rose has been far from a flop this time out no matter what happens. Our front 3 kicked off with Jermain Defoe. We included him last season as Defoe struggled for goals at Bournemouth despite banging them in for a woeful Sunderland side the season prior. Well, the veteran striker moved to Ibrox on an 18-month loan deal in January, and despite the beliefs of another person on this channel, he's done pretty well at Ibrox, not really struggling in front of goal, acting as deputy to the angry Alfredo Morelos. Next up was Kelechi Iheanacho. Last season was bad for the Nigerian, and this one's been even worse. After his big money move from City, Iheanacho managed just 3 Premier League goals for the Foxes, which was a woeful return. Well, this year he's done even worse so far, sitting on a single league goal despite playing more games. It looks like Iheanacho has a long way to go before realising his potential, and that starting games further down the league is a lot harder than coming off the bench and having De Bruyne put chances on a plate for you. And finally, it was Alexis Sanchez. In the flops video last season, I said that it had probably been the worst season of Alexis Sanchez's career. Well, almost a year on, and it turns out this one's the worst season of his career. The Chilean hasn't kicked on at Old Trafford, he struggled with injuries and struggled to perform under two different managers as well. It's a transfer that still haunts Manchester United, with his extravagant wages totally ruining the financial structure of the club, and Sanchez's move from Arsenal continues to go down as one of the worst signings in Manchester United history. So that's what's happened next to last season's Flops 11. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.